Howdy, howdy everyone. Chris here. We're back in the garage today, and today we're working on this Lexus LS400. I believe it's the LS400, maybe a 450, but this is a really beautiful car, but it's got some imperfections and this customer wants it perfect. So you can see where I've marked a lot of stone chips on the hood. We are going to repair those today and repaint this hood. We're also going to be repairing the bumper. Same deal there, stone chips. Mainly all this is some paint damage, and a lot of little minor damage at that we're buffing out. But we got some chips in the paint here that we're going to correct. Some light scratching across the deck lid. Stuff like this, a chip. Couple chips here. We'll get those all corrected and paint this, and I'll walk you through the entire step-by-step process. So we're going to start taking care of these chips. I'm going to start with a piece of 180 grit sandpaper on this foam block, and what we're going to do is kind of feather edge these out a little bit. I don't want to completely feather edge them out, but I want to knock down the edges and smooth them out a little bit so we can apply some filler in here. I'm just going to go in like a circular motion and get these hard edges of these stone chips taken care of. These are actually relatively minor. Okay, instead of doing it by hand, I'm going to use this smaller DA with this is some 220 grit. And we'll go around and machine sand all the chips out of this hood. And what we want to do is kind of feather edge it out. Okay, I'm going to keep it right about there. Can you see that? So there's still a little chip there. We'll sand that out a little bit more. And then I'm going to fill the rest of that. Darius took care of these scratches over here. Man, those sanded out nicely, didn't they? A couple little gouges here. The rest of this bumper was perfect. He's sanding this with 600 grit. Smooth everything out. He's doing it all basically by hand to make sure we don't break through anywhere. This bumper has been painted before. I see a run right in here. I'm going to start working on. We got some chips right down here in this jam. We're going to have to carefully repair these, carefully mask this off and blend this color right here. We're going to sand these edges out. I'm going to start with 320. So right here we have a couple small dents. I don't even know if you can see them on there, but there's one right here and there's a little low spot right here. It looks like something scraped right there. I'm going to use some cold glue on this and see if we can pull that out. Here's our cold glue. I can't remember the company I got this from, but this is a Kiko dent puller. We're just going to heat up this glue real quick. Just a little heat on it. Press it into here and snap it. Wow, that totally pulled that out. I want one more time. It's pretty good. I think I'm just going to block this out a little bit more. Probably primer it. I'm going to kind of show you what's left of this dent. Just got a little block here with some 320. This is going to show us our high and low areas. Well, it's taking it out, so it's blocking it out. So there's still a little bit of a low area right in the center here. You can kind of see it here. But when I block this, it's going to block down that clear. I'm not really pressing on this. I'm just blocking over it. It's knocking down the clear around it. You can still kind of see, I don't know if you can see it there on camera, but there's a little bit of a line right here. think we're going to put a little filler over that. Little USC icing. This is just a glazing putty. We're going to mix this up until it's all one uniform color. Just put a real thin coat in there. It sands really easy, so we'll sand it with 320. Just knock off the top layer with the 180. Okay, I'll switch to 320. We're going to sand the area around it with 600, and then we'll tape this up to prime. So we've got some Sunmite 600. We're just going to go kind of around this area. All this is going to be sanded with 600 anyway. Okay, so we've got this all in primer. We primered all these spots that we were repairing on this Lexus. All those little chips that we repaired, we went ahead and applied 2K primer to them. And then I block sanded them out with 320, and then I went over it with 600. Darius is going ahead and he's prepping these surfaces for paint and clear coat. He's using 600 grit sandpaper to sand the hood. We're going to blend into the fenders. Both fenders. We're going to paint the bumper and the rear bumper and then the 2 quarter panels. I'm just going around. I've got some 320 on a block and I'm just blocking out these areas. And then I'm going around with 600 on this soft block, and we're just going to sand out those 320 grit scratches before we apply our base coat. I really want to make sure these are sanded with 600 before we apply base. You got to be very careful. You got to have a fine scratch when you're applying your base coat. Otherwise, those metallics will sit funny in those scratches, and you could create a modeling effect or an inconsistency in your metallic finish. So make sure it's sanded nice and smooth with 600. We may even go through and apply a sealer to these. I don't like to apply sealer in this situation, but if I have to, I definitely will. So we're just going to block these out in the next pattern. Not going to get crazy with it. I don't want to get 320 grit scratches all over this hood. We just want to do these areas as needed. So I'll get all these spots done. We'll move on to the next step. Okay, so Darius is coming along on this Lexus. We've got all these areas repaired. We had some stone chips here, some deep chips that we repaired and blocked out. We had a little bit of body damage on this side here. There's a little bit of a dent right here that we blocked out. Darius is in the process of taping this up, and then we're going to paint this today. So what we're going to do today is we're going to paint the 2 quarter panels, the deck lid, and the rear bumper. Tomorrow, we're kind of breaking this up. We're going to paint the hood, 2 fenders, and the front bumper. We've got this all masked off. I washed it, tack ragged it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over it with a wet bed, the color blender. Let me show you what we're using. So this is the color blender we're using here. Speed coat. I got this off Amazon. I did reduce it about 10%, so we got some right here. I'm basically going to put a thin coat over both quarter panels, especially the repair area, and then both quarter panels, and then a little bit on the bumper, just where the blend's going to be. And then we'll get into our base coat. So we already got our base coat mixed up here, so we'll go right into our base coat after that. It's not necessary to use a base coat blender on every paint job. Anytime you spray fine metallics, those fine metallics have a tendency to lay funny in some fine scratches that normally wouldn't affect a color. And then it creates a little bit of a modeling effect or a blotchiness in your base coat. So what the base coat blender does is it kind of creates a barrier between those fine scratches and your base coat. So when you go to lay on your base, your metallic's going to lay nice and uniform. They're not going to lay funny in those scratches and create that modeling effect. So I just do this kind of as an insurance policy. So I ensure that I'm going to get a nice uniform finish in those metallics. And it really helps out. It makes a big difference. That's also what sealer's for, but because I had limited area to do my blends, I didn't want to get a bunch of sealer on this vehicle where I had to cover that up with base coat. So clear base, obviously you can put that over the entire panel and you don't have to worry about covering it with base. You can blend out your color and be good to go.
We don't have to clean the gun because it's just clear base coat.
So I'll continue with the base coat with the Inokraft Drizzle D1. This is that low volume, low pressure paint gun that I always use. And there's a lot of them, a lot of different ones around. They're pretty much the same gun. A lot of them are the same gun. They're just different brands, but they're manufactured by the same company. But the reason why I like to use this gun, a low volume, low pressure paint gun, when I'm applying my base is because it consumes so much less materials. So I get a lot of paint savings. My paint goes a lot further with this gun. So this is a perfect gun for DIYers. It sprays clear, fantastic as well. But I am going to use the SAGOLA 4600 for our clear coat, and we'll talk about that later on. Right now we're just spraying those primer areas. I want to introduce this paint to the surface, get one coat on. We're going to let it flash off for 10 to 15 minutes. A lot of beginners make the mistake of trying to cover that primer in one coat or keep laying it on there. Let it flash off. Let it start to cure. Your primer will cover much quicker that way. You'll just get better results. I'm getting ready to put the third coat on, and I noticed that there's a little particle of dust in my base coat. So I take a little piece of 600 grit sandpaper. This is flexible sandpaper. I'll leave a link in the description. This is great sandpaper. You always want to take a look at your base coat as you're spraying it. See if you're picking up any dust or trash. If there's trash in your base coat, stop what you're doing, let it flash off, make sure it's dry, and then sand that dirt nib out. This is going to give you a cleaner paint job, and it's very important if you're not spraying in a booth, if you're spraying at home. This is a key to getting a really clean paint job. You're going to get some dust in your paint job regardless, but anything you can do to limit that is going to really help you out. Once you sand it, you will have to put another coat of base on it, okay? You cannot clear over those scratches. You'll be able to see those through your clear coat. I've already started to blend this color out into the rest of the panel, but once I've got the primer covered, I'm going to do a drop coat. So what I mean by that is I'm moving a little bit farther away from the panel, and then I'm blending it out into the rest of the panel. This is key for these metallic finishes, especially this color. I'm being very careful with this color. To be honest with you, this car was super nice, and anytime a customer brings in a car that's immaculate condition and they want minor imperfections repaired, makes me a little nervous. So if you're a painter or you own a shop, if this is a situation, you know what I'm talking about, because if the car is absolutely perfect and they want minor corrections to their paint, I then know that this customer is going to micro inspect this car when it's done, and it better be perfect. If it's not, they're not going to be happy. So I'm taking extreme care to do a very nice job on this car. On this particular vehicle, I wanted to tack it off before I apply my clear coat. I don't always do that. I don't necessarily like to do that, but I wanted to inspect this paint, make sure there's no particles of dust that we missed, and I want to make sure it's super clean before we start applying our clear. Somehow I lost the footage on the first coat of clear, but we're into the second coat of clear here. The clear I'm using on this project is the FC710. It's made by Sherwin-Williams. It's a spot panel clear coat, great for DIYers because it's very reasonably priced and it's really quality clear. The gun I'm using is the SAGOLA 4600. Now we're using the 1.3 tip. I prefer that for clear coat. Some guys prefer a 1.4. It just depends on the gun. It just depends on how you like to spray. Our gun settings, I've got the fluid volume on this gun set wide open. Now I typically don't spray with a wide open fluid volume, but I like how this gun sprays at wide open. I've got my fan pattern turned wide open, and then I narrowed it back about a quarter of a turn. And then my air pressure on this particular gun is around 20 5 psi. Now when you're applying your clear coat, you want to make sure you're overlapping about 80%. This is important when you're spraying clear coat, that you get that previous pass overlapped about 80%. It allows that clear coat to flow out. So you're actually getting a little bit more clear on than just one coat. Since you're overlapping 80%, that's going to help you get more of a consistent finish in your clear. Again, you want to be aware of your speed and your distance. That all depends on how you like to spray and what's giving you the best results. Just for reference, I spray around 4 to 5 inches away. I don't spray super quickly and I don't spray super slow. Now on my last coat of clear, I will slow down just a little bit, just to help that clear to flow out, get a little bit more material on that panel so it flows out nicely at the end. I'm spraying the last coat of clear here, and now I did put 3 coats of clear on this Lexus. I wanted 1 extra coat of clear to maybe cover any minor dust particles and give me a little bit more room and material to wet sand and buff this. Now you will notice I am going slower on this deck lid. So on these flat upper surfaces, you can go a little bit slower, put a little bit more material on those surfaces. That's going to help it to flow out just a little bit better. Give it that deep finish that you're looking for. On the sides, you don't want to put it on as heavy as you do those flat. On the sides, you really don't want to put it on as heavy as you do those flat surfaces like the hood and the trunk. Darius went ahead and had some clear coat mixed up and ready for me. We'll finish up this last coat of clear, and then we'll take a good look at this finished product. Okay, so it's the next day. Let's take a look at this finish. I don't have all the lights on in here, but if you can see, finish came out real nice. We've got some particles of dust though that we're gonna have to, there's one there. We're gonna have to go around. We got quite a few in the deck lid that we're gonna wet sand and buff this whole car anyway. All these panels. Color came out good. Blend looks good right there. We put some color on that section right there, and it matches real well, so I'm happy about that. I mean, I put 3 coats of clear on this. Typically I don't. Typically I put 2, but it just didn't have the finish that I wanted, so I wanted to hit it just a little bit more. The bumper came out really nice. There's not a lot of dust in this at all. Hope you enjoyed this video. Appreciate each and every one of you watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Garage Noise. To better understand gun settings and how to spray amazing clear coat, click on this video now.